Konnichiwa.
Right on schedule.
Deer Creek International Business Solutions, how can I help you?
I am ready.
Well, that's great, Ladybug.
Ladybug.
Your new operational name?
Oh, I see what you're doing. Ladybug's supposed to be lucky. Ha!
You don't have bad luck.
Really? My bad luck is biblical. I'm not even trying to...
One of the things you do when you review a film is that you review the film that is out. You don't review the one that you want to exist, and you don't review the film that could have existed. In the case of Bullet Train, which is an ugly, Orientalist, derivative mess directed by David Leitch, that proves harder than ever, because there's no need for this film to be set in Japan. I mean, yes, it's based on a book, Maria Beetle by Kotaro Isaka, which is a smash hit in its native country in 2010, but barely any of that originality survives on screen. The names partially remain the same, but everything else is twisted through a Western lens, and it's cast entirely with mostly white Western actors. So the question kind of becomes, why don't you set the film in Europe then? Because Bullet Trains exists in Europe, and surely the changing locales, the cultures, and the styles would work even better for a Western audience when you could colloquialize all of that. And if anything, it would prevent what has happened now in the first place. Superficially, Bullet Train is a run-of-the-mill, watered-down Guy Ritchie, Quentin Tarantino pastiche that's already another person's homage. It has all the originality of a kid wearing their parents' clothes and singing karaoke in the mirror. Although it has to be said that at least kids are sincere when they do that, and this feels so calculated that there are moments in the film where it looks like Brad Pitt and Sandra Bullock are about to turn to the camera and, you know, try and sell me a water or some kind. It's a film that has been made to look like a credit card advertisement. And a part of that superficiality is because they never even shot a single thing in Japan. This has been shot in a backlot somewhere in Los Angeles, and the vision of Tokyo is this really dated, really ugly vision of what a Westerner who has never left the country thinks Japan looks like.
There's a gun on.
And that comes off in little tiny details if you've read the book. Like, they've changed the direction of the train. In the book, it travels north to a smaller town. In this, it's traveling to Kyoto so that they can use Mount Fuji in the background. Train station stops look like they're from a Hayao Miyazaki movie, and everything has this kind of really icky feeling, like you're looking at a travel brochure as described by somebody who once saw a Ghibli movie. Now, yes, some of the humor works, and some of it captures the dry and witty comedy of Kotaro Isaka's original novel. Most of that is thanks to Aaron Taylor Johnson and Brian Tyree Henry as Tangerine and Lemon, two assassins who are tasked with bringing a mob boss's son back to him after he has gotten into trouble. These two are easily the best part of the movie. They are charming, they are funny, and for the most part, they are the only ones who actually seem to kind of get what kind of film they're in. Brad Pitt is inherently likable. He's a really good actor. I like him a lot in almost everything he does, except here. He plays an assassin called Ladybug who believes that unless he's dictating the terms of how things are going, everything will go wrong because his bad luck will just strike at the worst possible times. But the problem is that they emphasize the wrong moments and they emphasize the wrong physicality in the performance, which makes the whole thing feel slapsticky when it should feel horrific when the violence does happen.
We are right on schedule.
And in the book, that kind of plays off as this kind of accidentally wandering into scenarios, but then deftly handling it yourself, only then to question, why does this come like muscle memory to me? And there's elements of that in the movie, but Brad Pitt plays that really broad, and it's really, really slapsticky, to the point that the fact that they repeat that joke over and over, it loses a lot of the impact, a lot of the kind of melancholy humor that was in the original.
You sure you want to talk this out?
Not particularly, no.
Okay.
But what's worse is the fact that this film has so much horrible, dated Orientalism involved in it. Brad Pitt's character spends so much of the movie just going around and making fun of Japanese culture in just things that are, like, they weren't even okay in the 70s. This is where we are 2 steps away from the Mickey Rooney stuff from Breakfast at Tiffany's. There is an entire scene dedicated to Brad Pitt wondering about the mysteries of a Japanese smart toilet. An entire massive disaster that kills probably hundreds of people is undercut with him saying that he needs to find one of the smart toilets because he has to go take a shit. He keeps coming up every once in a while. Almost every scene of him has him going like, I thought these people bowed more, I thought these people were more polite, why is everybody so short? And it's just a continuous repeat of this racist, stupid joke that has no business being in this film, or any film. And then it gets to the point where a lot of what happens in the end of the movie that is a spoiler also falls prey to this kind of belief that if Westerners are making a film, they have to be the tough guys. They have to be the ones who eventually teach this other culture how to do things. So constantly remove the agency from the culture where you have already set your film in. And it's really, again, a dated notion. It's something that we really shouldn't have, and it gets worse when you have really great Japanese actors like Hiroyuki Sanada or Karen Fukuhara, who are just kind of relegated to these kind of glorified extras. And in place of that, then you bring in more American actors into cameos. There's a lot of celebrity cameos in this, and it's just, it keeps pulling it away from the setting, it keeps pulling it away from what's actually interesting in the film. And I just kept thinking, why wasn't this set in Europe? If this had been set in Europe and this whole thing had been essentially playing up to these European stereotypes, it would have been a lot more palatable because it wouldn't feel so distinctly othering. It wouldn't feel like that another culture just showing up to a place, and not even showing up to a place, just filming something in a backlot like we were in the 1950s Hollywood, and pointing at things and going, that's fucking weird. Isn't that weird? Wow, let's laugh at that.
There's nothing simple about this job.
And if that sounds like that that I'm upset about it, and I kind of am, because I expect a lot more of this, because on a superficial level, it's a perfectly entertaining, way too long. It's 2 hours and 6 minutes, which is about a half an hour too long, easily. But other than that, it's well made, it's well directed, there's a couple of excellent fight scenes in it. Aaron Taylor-Johnson and Brian Tyree Henry are, like mentioned, they are super good in this. They are just incredibly funny and incredibly charming, and I would watch an entire film of just those two bickering and going on things. And again, Brad Pitt radiates charisma. He is the kind of definition of a movie star. He is fun to watch. But underneath all that, like, I can't turn my brain off to the point where I just kind of go like, oh, I can ignore this kind of stuff. And I realize that it's a much more difficult conversation to have, and I know that there's an interview going around with Kotaro Isaka where he says that he does not mind the Western actors in it. But again, in the same way that, like, just because he doesn't mind does not mean that he's speaking for everybody, and it doesn't mean I'm speaking for everybody. But it does mean that if this kind of stuff bothers you, if this kind of stuff is something you notice, I don't think you're going to enjoy Bullet Train. I think it's a film that would have been a lot better if somebody had taken a step back and asked, what are we saying here, and do we want to change this so that it looks more like us?